Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Fulfillment Podcast, where we help discover a better you by finding fulfillment in life, relationships, and finances. I'm your host, Josh, and in this episode, the fifth episode, we're talking about taking action. So this is episode 2 of the Law of Attraction mini-series. The first one, we talked about visualization. This one, we're talking about how to take action and move towards that visualization. And then in the next one, we're going to talk about removing resistance. So in the taking action piece, I know last time we talked about you're at point A, trying to get to point B. We're talking about that middle space in between, how we're going to take action. Don't always necessarily know how to get there, but in this episode, I'm going to break it down as best I can to help make it more black and white and see how that we can do it in a practical sense. So without further ado, let's dive right in. Okay, so we're talking about taking action. So of the 3 pillars, right, we talked about the first one, we've already talked about, going back, we talked about the basics of the Law of Attraction, what it is, and then kind of the 3 pillars more or less into manifesting, so using the Law of Attraction to manifest. What are the 3 different pillars? So we talked about visualizing in the last episode. This one's going to be about taking action, and then the next episode is going to be about removing resistance. So what is taking action? Okay, so we know that we talked about how pretty much we are at point A. So I beat this like dead horse to the ground. So point A is where we're at right now. And then point B is obviously what we're trying to visualize. That's what we're trying to achieve. Now, the question mark, right, the big ass question mark that's in between the two, so that empty space between A and B to get to B, how do we get there? We don't know how to get there. We just know where we want to be. So the question is how do you take action, or how do you get to point B without knowing what to do in between, how you're going to get there? And that's the biggest question, and the hardest, it's not really the hardest part, but it's one of the difficult parts of this thing. I'd say the hardest part is the third step, really removing resistance. But maybe for some people, maybe taking action actually could be. Maybe that's just like a personal thing of mine, that me personally, removing resistance is my difficulty. Just because I have a hard time with, like pleasing people and, getting past acceptance and all that stuff. But once you move past that, it becomes easier. So maybe the hard part could be, for some people, it could be taking action, right? Understanding how to do it. So when you visualize what it's like, and we'll just talk the finance side before we go to relationships. When we do the visualization and you see what it is you want to achieve, let's say in a job or just in the financial side of the thing, maybe you want to do we just say you want to get paid more, right? Or you want to be working a job to where you actually feel fulfillment in the job that you're doing. So maybe that looks like you got to maybe you have to leave the job, or you have to quit, or you have to move somewhere else, right? Or you have to go to a different state, or you have to travel somewhere, or you have to maybe obviously leaving the job. Maybe it's not in a different department. Maybe you have to leave that job entirely, like quit the job and literally take another job somewhere else, right? These are huge transitions to do. But when you visualize it, right, in your gut, in your heart, in your instinct, you know what you have to do to get there, right? So if we're and a big part of all this stuff is being completely 100% open and honest with yourself. And I think maybe we'll do an episode on the egos, but the ego is a big thing that can impede progress. It can impede your ability to manifest, because you have to be able to humble yourself to the point where you can be honest enough to know what it is you need to do. Because if you have to quit a job, but your ego's getting in the way and saying, no, you can do it, just by staying here, and you can achieve the same things and whatever, and you think you can do it, all you're doing is you're avoiding the correct path, right? You're avoiding the right path. Your heart knows what you have to do, right? Your gut will tell you exactly what it is that you actually need to do in order to get to your visualization. It'll tell you. Your visualization will tell you how you're going to do it. You just have to look hard enough, and a lot of times it's getting over your ego in order to do that. So in order to start, right, so taking action, step 2, taking action, in order to start that process, right, let's say that we're just going to stick with that same scenario. You want to get paid more because you think in order to achieve financial security, right, maybe you're trying to achieve financial security. In order to get to the security piece of finances, you need to get paid a little bit more because your basic lifestyle expenses are exceeding where you're at, and you want to continue to grow and you want to continue to improve, which is great. So you should. So we visualized what a life looks like for you. Now, how do we get there? Well, if we need to quit our job, right, we need to live the lifestyle that is in our visualization. And that may be a totally different job. And if that's the case, right, if it's a totally different job, then we have to take violent action towards that visualization as if we were already living that lifestyle. So you see that visualization, and you see that you are living in a different, totally different lifestyle, right? You're working a different job, you're making a different level of income, you're making, more enough to where now you're financially secure. Okay, so while we close our eyes and we think about that, now we take action to make that visualization reality. So maybe that means we put in our 2 weeks notice, talk to our boss, sit down and schedule a time with him. Hey, tomorrow I'm going to go in and I'm going to sit down and I'm going to schedule a time to talk with the boss and tell him, hey, listen, I got 2 weeks and then I'm going to be moving somewhere else. Or, maybe you got to start by putting your resume in, or maybe you got to start by putting your resume together, right? Because that's kind of the most basic step of where you need to go. Maybe the job that you're looking to attain doesn't have a resume, but maybe you got to network with some people and call some people, and you got to do some interviews or whatnot, right? Maybe those little things are things that you have to do. But those are the things you have to do, because in order to get there, you got to have that, right? You kind of know where it is you want to go. So start taking violent action and go for it. And that's the hardest thing. I'll give you an example. So in my personal life, right? In my life, I was in the Army for 7 years, active duty, got out of ROTC, did that, commissioned active duty military. I was in 7 years, right? Talk about an identity. I did so much additional training and deployments and, working with units and all these guys that I've met and all this stuff. My identity was in the Army. I was an officer in the Army. That was my identity. Leaving that meant I had to let go of all of that stuff. I had to let go of the rank. I had to let go of the training, the Ranger School stuff. I had to let go of all those things, the airborne, just learning and understanding that I would never do those things again was probably like the hardest thing in the world for me to comprehend, that I was leaving it behind. It was very, very, very difficult. It's like an identity crisis. I almost don't know who I am without that, right? But in my visualization of attaining, financial abundance, the Army wasn't part of that. The Army, to me, became a point of a plateau effect. You got to a point where it kind of just plateaued, and you weren't really going to progress. You weren't going to get any worse, but you weren't really going to start you couldn't take off, right? Your income was incredibly limited. Your income was limited. Your ability to make decisions and move around and surround yourself with certain people, all those things were very, very limited. You didn't have a lot of control over all that. So it wasn't part of when I would visualize financial abundance and what that would look like. When I do that, the Army wasn't a part of that. Not even working a 9 to 5 was part of that. Being self-sustaining and having my own businesses, my own timeline, my own schedule, and my own income, that's what was in my visualization. So that meant, okay, well, if that's the case, then I got to start taking violent action towards that visualization. Now, that was hard because I already said, right, I was having a massive identity crisis because I've known literally nothing different. But that's what I needed to do. So I was like, you know what? Fine. If that's the case, I ended up talking to somebody that I was pretty close with as a financial advisor, and took a position as an advisor with one of the local firms, and ended up starting my transition that way. And it was great. It was awesome. And while it was not necessarily a 9 to 5 anymore, but you're still kind of constricted to a schedule. You're still meeting with, certain clients, and you were still kind of working a basic job. It wasn't a 9 to 5. You're pretty much your own boss. It's 100% commission. So you really determined your own success in that regard. But it was definitely very, very different than the Army. And I wouldn't say the Army's 9 to 5. I'd almost say the Army was a 5 to 6. It was like an 11-hour workday type schedule. And sometimes you would deploy, and you would just 100% be at work for 9 months. So it was very, very different than this new position, right, as a financial advisor. So I ended up taking that position, and what that did is that at least got my foot in the door of getting out of the Army, right? So I started taking action. I started moving in the direction of what that financial abundance visualizations looked like. I started moving in the direction, and while it was hard, I started taking steps and I started moving and going in that direction. So maybe that's what it would look like for you, right? Not the Army and not financial advising and not, getting out of a 9 to 5, but maybe it's something similar. Maybe it's getting out of whatever job A for you would be the equivalent of my Army thing. Maybe job A would be what you're at right now, and you want to get out and you want to move into another career field because that's going to move you one step closer to financial security, right? Or maybe you're the same boat. Maybe you want to achieve a financial abundant life too. And in order to do so, you have to get out of your 9 to 5 humdrum lifestyle because you want to find something that allows you to progress, allows you to continue to grow, allows you to kind of exponentially increase your income. And in order to do that, well, guess what? You're probably going to have to leave whatever it is that you got going on, because if it's not part of your visualization, then it's not going to be something that you're taking action towards. You're probably going to be taking action away from it, right? Another example of this is you have to pretty much, you have to put yourself in the mindset of you are that. You are whatever the visualization is, whatever you're trying to achieve, you are that. You're already there. So think of it as if you've already attained that lifestyle and you live that lifestyle as if you're there, right? Now, I did mention, I think in the first Law of Attraction episode, that this does not mean if you want to be a millionaire, start bombing hundreds of thousands of dollars on cars and houses and all this other stuff. No. Not necessarily what I'm saying. What I'm saying is put yourself in the mindset. What would the millionaire have? Would the millionaire have businesses or would he have a bunch of fancy cars? Well, he'd probably have both. However, what's he going to have first? And then do that, right? You're the millionaire mindset. Put yourself in the millionaire mindset. What does the millionaire have? All right, I need to start businesses. What are some things I can do? What are some ideas that I can create? What are, different things that you can come up with to start those businesses, to get you going in that right direction? If you want to be somebody that's got a bunch of investments and maybe you have a beautiful investment portfolio, right? Well, what does somebody that has a great investment portfolio have? What does somebody that builds wealth like Warren Buffett have? Well, they probably make decisions first. If you can't make a decision, that's probably something you need to start working on immediately. Trusting people with your money and hiring an advisor and getting people like that working in your corner. But two, is they probably have a good amount of income, and they probably have a lot of it just being pushed into what their investments are. And if you're struggling to put away $100 a month into your investment portfolio or even savings, well, guess what? That's probably something that's going to have to change. You're going to have to start thinking like a millionaire or like a Warren Buffett kind of guy. You're going to have to start being like, well, my priority is investments and getting stuff kicked into there. So you're going to have to start doing that. Take violent action towards it like you are already living that lifestyle. Another example is, I mentioned before this buddy of mine, Aaron Daugherty, right? Aaron Daugherty does YouTube videos. He actually has a podcast now, but he talks about a lot of stuff kind of on the law of attraction. He's a little more esoteric than I am with it. He's been doing it a lot longer too, but he talks a lot about, spiritual beings. We are spiritual beings having a human experience. And as he was before he kind of got into this law of attraction and the esoteric side of the whole understanding, he was working a 9 to 5 as a 100% commission selling women's shoes, right? And it wasn't necessarily a lifestyle that he loved. When he would visualize a lifestyle he wanted of financial independence and then eventually financial abundance, what did that look like to him? Well, it looked like being a mentor, doing live shows, working with people to help improve their life and help them understand kind of the spirituality of everything, and being a full-time YouTuber. And I know I talked about it before, but it makes sense when you hear it like this, because being a full-time YouTuber, it was totally different than what he was doing working his 9 to 5. However, he saw himself, he put himself in that mindset of being a full-time YouTuber, and he was like, you know what, I'm a full-time YouTuber. I'm going to make a video a day, and I'm going to publish it for the next, however many months that he decided. But he did a video every single day, and I think he did it for pretty close to a year, if I'm not mistaken. Aaron, maybe you can help me out with that one. But he did do a video a day, and that was because he put himself in the mindset. Once he visualized, he did step 1 visualization, he understood what it was he needed to do, and then he took himself into step 2, which is the taking action piece, and he took violent action like he had already been, like he was already in that state, like he had already been in that visualization, like he was living the visualization, he was there. So he was living it. He was making a YouTube video a day. He was coming home after work. He was while he was cooking the food and stuff, he was figuring out how he was going to run the episode. He would record the different videos, and then he would post and edit everything before he'd go to sleep the day to repeat everything the next day. And before he knew it, once he had about 30, I think it was like 38 or 40 channels or videos, sorry. Once he had about 40 videos, one of them popped off, and before you know it, he was making enough money through his YouTube videos and his YouTube channel that he didn't need to work his 9 to 5. He put in his 2 weeks notice and got out of there. And now he had achieved that financial security and then continued to build on that and continued to do it. And then he achieved his financial abundance. And that's how it's supposed to work, right? That's how the whole thing works. The toughest part is it takes a lot to get started. To mentally put yourself into that place to where you start taking action and you start moving in those directions, it's insanely difficult. It's so hard. Because you have to see yourself as already living that visualization, and we don't, right? We always, as human beings, we naturally see the lack of something. If we don't have it, we automatically see the negative side. We automatically see that we lack whatever it is that we're trying to get to, and we don't have it. So the trick is to switch yourself, to move your mind in the direction of you have it. It is you. You are it. You are that lifestyle, you are that visualization, and then just act like it. Take the action towards that lifestyle like you're already there, right? So if you're still with me here and this still makes sense, hey, that's awesome, because you're catching on, right? That means you're catching on. That means you're starting to understand and comprehend that, albeit a simple concept, it's difficult to execute. But I'm hopefully breaking it down easy enough to where it's you're able to understand that it's achievable. It's not something that's impossible to do. It's achievable. And that's anybody that's built success financially or in a relationship understands this. They understand that these different things are possible. And especially anybody that's read a book called The Secret or any other law of attraction. I think, was it Power versus Force is another really strong one that I have on the bookshelf. That is another really good one to read into. But anybody that understands this gets it. It's possible. You know how to do it. We all have it inside of us. We're just inherently programmed to not understand this right off the bat. And that's ultimately what makes it very difficult, right? Is we aren't by default meant or understanding this as it is. So, okay. So we talked about a little bit of the financial side. Now let's switch gears and go to the relationship side of things, okay? So let's talk about what does taking action on the relationship side of things look like. Well, let's say you are looking to manifest, right, this perfect person in your life. Maybe there's some really deep emotions that you felt with somebody else. You really liked it. Maybe there's some things that were missing in that relationship. So you have to kind of make sure that those things don't come into it, but at the same time, you're finding all the positive and you really want to manifest somebody that has all those things, right? And you're doing everything you can to visualize as clear of a picture as possible. Great. Cool. Okay, so we got that out of the way. We visualized exactly what it is we want. Now, how do we take action to get there? Well, let's start with this. What does it look like to have that person in the life, right? Because we're trying to essentially take violent action like we're already living that lifestyle. So what does living that visualization look like? What does living in the life that person is present in our life with us? What does that look like? Well, maybe that means you clear out a little bit of space in your closet and you make room for another person. Maybe you've got, a bunch of extra clothes that you don't wear and you got some things hanging around that you could probably toss in order to make a little bit of extra room. Maybe you can get rid of some of that stuff, right? Maybe you clear out a couple dresser drawers, or maybe you do a little bit of, side things like that because, guess what? That person's probably going to be a part of your life and they're probably going to need to put some clothes in some places if they're going to be living or staying with you, often. Maybe another thing is during this whole time, you need to realize that you need to be building and creating the best version of you, Because if you want to meet somebody that's going to be genuine and that's going to have all these different characteristics that you're looking for, they're probably going to be looking for the same thing, right? If you want a high quality girl, well, the girl probably also, a high quality girl will probably also want a high quality guy. Otherwise, she's not going to be very happy. Well, that means you're probably going to have to be a high quality guy if you're going to try and meet her, right? And the same goes reverse the scenarios, right? If you want somebody that's high quality, they're also going to want somebody that's high quality. That means you're going to have to start living like you're a high quality person. And what does a high quality person do? Well, I think that answers how you take action towards doing it. If a high quality person does that, or has that, or is that, those are the actions and the steps that you need to take because you want to make sure that this relationship's going to work. And I can tell you right now, a high quality person is going to be confident and complete in themselves. They're not going to need somebody else for love. That's not something that they're going to need. So if you do need that and you need that attachment, and that's the whole reason you want this perfect relationship is because you're lacking the attachment of a relationship, that's something you need to work on. That's something you need to figure out because you, by lacking that thing, right? Remember, by lacking something, that implies that you don't have it. And if you don't have it, that means you're going to sit there and you're going to constantly be not having it. And you don't want that. You want to move in the direction of achieving and fulfilling kind of these different things. So work on yourself. Critical part of that, right? Critical components of that is definitely being alone. You cannot be looking for somebody that is complete in themselves if you are not complete yourself. And a part of that is you have to be comfortable to be alone. You have to be able to be out of a relationship and pursue your own hopes, goals, and dreams without anybody else being a part of your life. You have to be comfortable in who you are. And if you're not, you're going to know that because you're going to feel so uneasy when you're alone. You have to be comfortable being alone, having nobody else in your life. Maybe you got friends and family, right? I'm not talking about nobody in your life. Maybe you got friends, family, and coworkers and stuff like that, right? You have people in your life that you can talk to and bounce ideas off of, maybe even vent to, all that stuff. You do have those people in your life. I am saying you don't have a significant other. You don't have somebody else in the relationship sense that you bounce things off of, right? Because let's think about this too. Think about if you meet somebody, right? And when you meet somebody, you find out that they're kind of pseudo dating someone else, right? They're talking to somebody else. They're kind of just waiting to see if you're better than them. And if you're better than them, then they're going to leave that person. But if you're not, then they're going to stick with them. How does that make you feel? Probably pretty shitty, right? Like, well, damn, all right. So you're kind of just keeping me on the burner to see if I'm good. And if I'm not, then you're going to dump me and, stick with them. Like, that's kind of twisted. So now you don't like it, right? So since we've established that's pretty shitty, now why would you do that to someone else? Exactly, right? You're not going to. You're not going to do that to somebody else. A high quality person, if you're looking for a genuine relationship, a high quality person's not going to be cool with that. And maybe you're not looking for a high quality person. Maybe you're not looking for a genuine relationship. But if you're not, understand that. Understand that you're not looking for that. Don't think that you're going to be genuinely happy with somebody if you're bouncing around from one person to another, sleeping with whoever you want, doing all these different things, going out partying, drinking your sorrows away and all that stuff. You're not taking action towards the visualization at that point. That I can promise you that's not part of the lifestyle. If you want to be with one person, you're not sleeping with 100 other people because it's probably not cool to them. You're probably going to be with one person. So treat yourself like that, right? Live that lifestyle like you are already there. It makes sense. It's crazy, right? I think when I say these things, even in myself, it's crazy because it's doable. It's simple. It's easy. You can do this. But we don't see it that way. We're not programmed to see it that way. We think we got to solve all these problems, take care of all this stuff on our own, and then maybe someday somebody will happen. No. Stop thinking that way. Take control of yourself, visualize what you want, and then take action towards that. Don't think that you can just go willy-nilly not working on yourself or not making action towards your visualization, and you're going to get the visualization. You'll probably get some weird offshoot of that visualization. Probably get some crazy person that's going to jack your life up one way or another. You don't see it now. You think they're perfect, but you didn't work on yourself, so you're willing to accept a little bit of shortcoming, right? You're not the high-quality person, so guess what? You didn't really attract a high-quality person. So you're kind of going to get something that's a little less than high, right? When you look at somebody's ability to say no to people. That says a lot about their own opinions of themselves. You need to be able to, and this is another thing too, I think, when we get into a lot of relationship dating apps and meeting other people and stuff, a lot of people don't necessarily spend the time alone for themselves before they start these apps. And what that does is that creates a lot of issues with the people that they meet, or they get really discouraged. And this will crawl into the next episode, so I'll cover this kind of continued into the next one. But you have to work on yourself before you start moving into like dating and getting back out there, because if you don't, then you're going to be willing to settle on things that are less than what you really want. You understand what your visualization is, but you're not willing to walk away from somebody that's not fully what your visualization is, unless you're totally happy and confident being alone. And that's where I think a lot of people fall short. So with that being said, I'm going to end the Taking Action episode here. Like I said, if you guys want, follow me on Instagram at fulfillment_coaching and send me some feedback if you guys want. That's the best way to get a hold of me. Send me a DM and just let me know, hey, I want to hear a little bit more about the taking action on the relationship side or on the financial side or whatever. Best way to get a hold of me on that and to provide me some direct feedback, do it there. Podbean is where this podcast is hosted. If you guys can, go on there, rate the podcast. Appreciate you guys for listening. If you're on iTunes or Spotify, every download and every follower definitely helps. So thank you guys for tuning in. The next episode is going to be fire. We're going to continue to pick up right where we left off. We're going to talk about removing resistance. It's probably my favorite pillar to this whole thing. It's the hardest one for me to pretty much get behind, just mentally, because it's so difficult for me to wrap my head around. But I've tried to master it, and I'm getting so much better at it, and I love it, and my life has gotten so much better because I've taken these 3 steps, and I've learned to manifest, and I'm learning how to remove resistance, and that's what this whole next one's going to be on. So I'm going to teach you guys some pretty good stuff. So thanks for listening, and we'll see you guys in the next episode.